Yeah, I consent.
Yeah.
I think that's everyone, so go ahead. Okay, all right then. Can I get PM?
Okay, can I know if I am visible and audible?
Yep.
Okay, just let me set. My speech starts in 3. Firstly, my pronouns are she, her, and I prefer verbal POI, so don't type in the chat. Thank you. 3, 2, 1. At the start of my speech, I would like to start with some setup. Firstly, how would the implication look like? This debate is not about incorporating AI bots in childcare overnight. It is a fair game for OG to frame this debate in accordance to the expansion of AI. If the AI is not that developed to handle emotions of kids, we are happy to incorporate it into like some extent alongside actual human caretakers. Because once it gets better, we will incorporate more and slowly increase. Basically, we will slowly do it by the developmentation and expansion of AI. Secondly, what does aggressive funding look like? This looks like governments investing a big portion of their funds to AI research into this. We will not take any like money from essential services like healthcare or education, but instead all of our funding into R&D for AI would go mainly for betterment of childcare services. Now, moving on to the first argument. How does like a guaranteed prevention of neglect and abuse of children? Why is the problem of abuse so bad in the status quo? Because firstly, there are so many bad caretakers who neglect and mistreat children, people who beat children just for them to listen to them more. Well, children are just like inside this development place where they like to have fun and are not that serious, right? So these group of people would either too like so tired and bored of this job, they're either just like they can be pedophiles who are sexually attracted to children. There can be so many people who have abused to the children mentally, sexually, physically, and so many parts that hurt children. Now, secondly, even if it's the case that these caretakers are great at their jobs, they love children, many childcare centers are still oversaturated and understaffed because of firstly lack of funding, secondly overpopulation in many countries where childbearing is becoming more and more in demand, and thirdly parents being more and more busy due to their jobs. And this is not a part to argue because I know that some people, like some of our opponents, are going to talk about how, yeah, we don't need to invent an AI bots. We just have to try to make these better. But you have to recognize that there are not that many caretakers who are that willing to take up this job or are that nice to children, right? Because you cannot be sure that the people who are good, the people who you invest in to hire are going to be nice to your children, that they're going to be caring to the children and be understanding. Now, then why is AI better? 3 reasons why this is true. Firstly, they are so much more easy to monitor. There are always so many ways to put a camera on these bots or any other device that may be developed in the future so that parents can keep an eye on their children if needed, or like review when they go back home or get a report. Even if the parents do not really keep an eye on it every day and that they're busy, or if the camera or like whatever voice recording thing is accidentally damaged, there can be still other ways, like for example, voice recordings, movement sensors, and like so many, and they can even put various microphones and cameras in order so that if one is broken, the other ones still survive. And secondly, they do not have any like unnecessary human emotions that lead to inefficiency. One of the main reasons of neglect and abuse is the caretakers feel tired, bored, or have a general hatred of children. But AI bots has no feelings for children. They don't get tired. They don't get bored. Have no emotions. Are just there to do their job. There's a so much smaller chance of them feeling unhappy and start to be or like not care about their assigned child or group of children. Thirdly, they're all inside from the same code. AI can only do what they were told to do inside a code that is written and look over like a lot of times to find any mistakes or malfunctions. They cannot beat or slap children as a punishment because it is not even written inside the code. They do not know how to move their arms, how to like move their legs or whatever way they move in order to violently slap or beat the children. They do not even know how to do so, and they do not know how to neglect someone more than feel sexually attracted to someone, such as children here. Now, Why is this important? Because you have to accept the fact that children are getting abused physically, sexually, and voiced and neglected every day. This is such a social norm and problem because you have to admit that they're fiddle pills. They're caretakers who are only there to take the money because they think that it's so easy. You just have to sit there, do nothing, tell children to shut up and tell them to not be so loud. Just like scroll through your phone and sit there and do nothing, right? And you still get the job. And you, right? And next, because it's the fact that this is so important because AI can do this so much better, right? AI can do this so much better. It's so important to the debate. We are proving why AI is able to help in solving such a big problem of child neglection, which and one of the main reasons why parents are not sending their children to these caretaking centers and are trying to balance work and taking care of the children while they do not have money to get aunties and other people to help them because they have to do this because they know that it's not safe, right? They know that it's not safe for them to give their children to the caretaking centers and for them to like do whatever they want. Now, the impacts of why is this debating many? First, on the metric of vulnerability, because the children are the most vulnerable here, and if they get um and if they get, for example, hurt, if they, for example, get neglected or abused, it's a very big problem. You are hurting the future youth. You're hurting the future of the whole world in order for everyone to move forward. Because this is not just about how like you are not saying nice things to adults. It's about children. Children do not know how to fight back. They may have mental shadows inside their heads that like they might never be want to go to a caretaking center or might not even want to go to kindergarten when they grow up because they have those visions inside their heads. They have mental issues. They can have like such diseases and so much more. And next, on exclusivity, in other words, only the rich can access this in the other worlds because of lack of funding and accessibility. But in our world, like almost everyone can have this, like because the government is funding from the department. They're already funding for like, for example, caretakers, but instead we are saying that they can be funding these AI companions. That is exclusive to our side right now in this debate. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your speech, welcoming leader of opposition. Thank you.
Am I audible?
Oh yeah, yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. A few things for you today. 1, why is traditional healthcare, childcare inherently better? 2, what is the state actually supposed to do? And how this affects people. Okay. Firstly, who actually uses childcare, right? I think rich people can afford good physical childcare symmetrically. This means that like this means that the AI bot can't stop your an AI bot cannot stop your kids from turning on the stove or eating all the pills, right? I think some refutation to OG for start. One, abused children will be abused on either side of the house. I don't see why you can't just tell your abuser's babysitter to fuck off or put cameras in your in your living room or whatever to make sure that your kid isn't abused, or if you see that your kid being slapped and your kid telling you, probably change the babysitter, right? I think these happens on both sides. People who will check the cameras will, people who won't. Okay, so why is traditional healthcare one inherently better, right? AI bots can stop your kids from cannot stop your kids from turning on the stove or eating all of the pills that you said there. Real people actually help with socialization, learning body language, social behaviors that's what's predictable. This is like super important for children this age because they're quite young. This is like when they're actually learning their development. This is why like people actually think that like childhood development is so important. This is why like all of the milestones exist for these children. This is why children need to like interact with humans to actually know how to act, how to do this. This is when their brain is developing the most, which means that like this is when they actually need the most people, right? Social interactions with caretakers helps them blend in with their peers, helps them make friends. This is like impossible to learn from a bot, especially on like Govs being like, yeah, we're gonna like implement this like slowly or whatever, right? I think then probably like a human childcare who can like actively play with these people, make sure that your kid doesn't touch the stove is probably better. Engaging in like healthy physical activities, making sure that like being a warm actual human to be able to like hold your child if like they cry or whatever is probably good. Having human interaction is good, right? I think we care about kids the most about in this world because like when you develop when like this is like literally non-removable, right? Meaning that like if you miss this part of development, you are actually like fucked for your whole life. This means like it's really hard to like reverse the harms if you like miss the first milestones of your life because you don't have like good social skills as your peer. You become like less outgoing. You're treated the way you're treated as a kid, then like slowly impacts you how you like grow up. This means that like when rich people are actually able to afford childcare because of like all of these stuff, good childcare because of all of these like mix that we have given it, this leads to like poor people not being able to do this, poor people continuing the cycle of like poor kids staying poor because they don't actually have the actual like same level of startup point, right? I think then so insofar what is the state actually able to do, right? The state has this sum of money, and the extent that they're spending this on like huge ass companies that are actually like developing AI and like making like all of these stuff. I don't think like I think it's just like generally better to be able to like fund them into making sure that these like children are actually well cared of. This is the only thing that the state is actually able to do themselves. I think on either side of this house, AI is probably likely to develop themselves, not only for childcare, but like for all of these stuff because there's like money, because there's profit to do of it. I don't know to which extent like the actual like aggressive like inputting into this will actually like give something to AI, but also I think just in generally having this lump sum of money that like the state just wastes on other stuff is probably bad. Having these stuff like being able to getting like actual systems in place, making sure that like these people are well paid, are not overwhelmed, making sure that like the rates are actually good for these people, putting like this money that like is used for like childcare into the hands of actual people instead of like multi-billionaire companies is probably in general good, right? These employees are overworked because of the circumstances. If this money is able to change their circumstances, then they're probably able to be like they feel like less dead when like they're with children like 24/7. They're probably able to like get more people in. They're probably able to not pay them like so badly that they have to get like three other like jobs, right? Also, like I feel like Gov has to explain why AI development will be done well. I think one, there's a lot of reasons why this AI development might not even work or might be bad. One, not many AI companies have this function. So you're likely looking to like contract a select few firms like Amazon or like IBM or something like that, right? I think the lack of competition and like how much money you're giving them is pretty dangerous. AI is like hard to understand. Will a government official actually know like what is happening? And there's like a relatively high barrier to understand how it works. But also like importantly, AI is new. It has never been used before. It's probably impossible to like import all the stuff that like childcare experts know, that like childcare that that has been like built up over the ages, right? This involves stuff like psychology, which like AI can't reliably like interpret. These companies also likely won't make like the AI give like definitive diagnosis on like stuff that happens on like medical or psychological stuff because legal liability reasons, and like they can get sued if their stuff is diagnosed like incorrectly. This then delays like how quickly people can notice like when their kids have stuff that are going wrong, when they like go through medical stuff, when they like get an allergy and like they're like panting there, but like your AI doesn't actually know if like they're just like tired from playing with the ball or if it's an actual allergy. I think like all of these stuff are really hard to actually pinpoint right now, and aggressively funding And like if Gov wants to claim that like all of these will be possible in the future, this means that the government or whatever has to spend a lot more money inside this that could have just been spent to childcare, who already has like all of the benefits, and actually giving like the money to people. I think then let me just like recap this. One, childcare is super important. Human interaction is important for people in the developing stage. This is super important because these children, this is like non-removable, right? You cannot take back the time you have lost. This is why then AI is like very unlikely as of present or as of the future to be actually able to get to the level of child caretakers. If we have this money, I think the state is the only one that is able to actually like fund these stuff to make sure that people actually gets it. And also it's probably better for like these low wages people that are working as like child care people that also have a family to like take care of, to be actually able to like be paid well enough to be able to care their kids. I don't think like most people, yeah. So proud to oppose.
All right, thank you, Leader of Opposition. Welcoming Deputy Prime Minister.
Okay, so prefer pronouns she, her, and POIs in the chat, please. So if everybody's ready, my time can start. Now, so in my speech, I'll first refute the OO, then strengthening the Prime Minister points and on some weighing. First of all, the OO specified on how we should weigh on the human interactions. Here we have 3 responses. One is that it can still happen if the AI, because in our world, if the AI is not developed to handle emotions of kids, we are still able to incorporate with some extent alongside actual human caretakers. So this will still happen in the government side. Second of all, yes, they get from their parents, they will still be able to get to their parents after, let's say, the parents come back to work, right? They only grow up with a nursing quote like a nursing bot, but it doesn't mean that they don't go and see their parents, right? After the parents come from work, they will still be able to see their parents. Parents will still like smooth the tantrum and handle every fever and give endless love to kids. Just because we have a nursing droid doesn't mean that the parents doesn't exist in their world, right? So same thing. Third response that humans and especially children are extremely malleable and adaptable, because if they become accustomed at a very young age, at a stage where their brain is developing, they're good at adjusting. That is exactly how.
Hi, sorry, I paused the timer at 11 10. Well, sorry, 1 minute 10 seconds. I think you cut off there.
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay,
I
cool.
stopped. Hello?
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you now, but I couldn't hear you for a bit. I paused your timer at 1:10, 1 minute 10 seconds. You were just at children are good at adjusting, and
Yeah.
that
Okay,
was the
thank you.
last thing I heard. Okay,
Yeah, thanks.
thank you.
So yeah, I can start from 110 starting. Now, so this is how exactly, like, let's say kids of LGBTQ parents, they get used to the idea of, let's say, 2 dads or 2 moms instead of traditionally having one mother who is a woman, right? So this is directly a example of how these children adapt, right? So judge, their only benefit is not exclusive and actually does even better in our world, right? They also said that AI won't be experts like human, right? However, again, 3 responses. The first response is that AI does this have to be experts to make these kids happy, right? The very fact that AI bots can do it at the very least to attend the kids who want someone to talk or to play with them is a net benefit. Second of all, our framing directly says that we can develop it more extensively. This is not an overnight implication. This is a gradual implication, and it does not happen overnight. It gets better and better over time. So the OO needs to be more charitable. Third of all, sorry, not now. What about instances where humans themselves are incomplete and abusive? All our analysis on abusive caretaker was unresponded and simply dropped by the OO. Now, moving on, they also talked about how poor people will stay poor. However, 2 responses here. One is that it's actually cheaper for AI, right? If the government's funded more, it will actually become more cheap. Second of all, I don't see the problem with giving money to these big companies if they're doing something that is actually beneficial and it has a mutual benefit. And I can take a POI now. Not necessarily. Okay,
So now moving on. To our argument. First of all, we tell you that the first argument is that it will not happen overnight, right? So if AI is not that developed to handle the emotions of kids, we're happy to incorporate into some actual human caretaker. So Judge, what happens is that this is a gradual shift, right? So it does not actually happen to be a sudden overnight shift. We can we can do this directly do a gradual shift that happen, and these children can get used to it and be able to adapt to this changing circumstance. Now, moving on, second of all, onto our argument about preventing abuse. So right now, Judge, there are several issues with the status quo. A is that there are bad caretakers, and B, the lack of funding, and C, overpopulation, which is causing the childbearing to become more and more in demand, right? However, we tell you AI is better than the status quo in these four ways actually. A is that it is easier to monitor. B, it does not have any emotions to interfere with any of their jobs. And third of all, it is written as the same code, so there is no violation over any of the system. Lastly, it is cheaper and more accessible for all these people if the government's fund allow, right? Our opponent bring up this point of how of these children will be addicted. We tell you otherwise. This is just such as a bot that is taking care. I don't see how they will be addicted to, let's say, a nursing droid, right? I don't see how this point works. Moreover, it is the same thing with humans, right? Wouldn't they be addicted in their role too, right? So in the end, Judge, this impact is not unique to our side. Now, why our argument too about preventing abuse actually wins? First of all, we tell you this is actually safer for the four reasons I've just said. This is actually safer than human nursing, which actually benefits the vulnerable communities, which are the children, right? Second of all, it benefits everyone because it doesn't need a mass amount of money for hiring these nurses or hiring these childbearings, right? On the other hand, if the government put intensive funds inside, not only will they be able to provide a safer access, but they will be also able to provide more access for everybody, making a mutual benefit. Third of all, we also tell you that because of these AI, it can prepare the children for the future, right? This also directly to respond to our opponent's point, because we tell you that if they are getting used to the AI in a smaller age, it can help prepare the children in the future, which is about AI, right? The interacting with AI companies from an early age can help children become more familiar with the technology and its capabilities, right? It can provide opportunities for children to develop digital literacy skills and etc. That can also help and help them navigate and interact with AI systems in the future. So, Judge, in the end, not only we are providing a safe, but we are also preparing these children, but also preventing these risk that humans might have. Preventing these abuse that might happen. For example, their own emotion, their own hatred. The opposition cannot make sure that this will not interfere with what happened on the child itself. However, as an AI bot itself, we can be sure that all these human emotions, etc., will not happen on the children. Children. So in the end, Judge, let us do some weighing in the world. First of all, we tell you on the government, we not only provide them with more healthy also prevent abuse that is happening to children. Second of all, we also can also make sure that these AI is incorporated alongside with human caretakers. Not only that, but these parents will still be able to see their children. They will still be able to have human parents, but just as a nursing droid, right? Third of all, we also prepare the children for the future development in the future of AI. It can better prepare the children with the future of AI. However, on the opposition world, not only will they not be able to bear the risk of humans being abusive to the child, or second of all, they cannot make sure that all of these people are able to access these caretakers, right? As overpopulation happens, the demand increases, and they cannot make sure that everyone has access, which is why we urge you for a government's ballot. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deputy Prime Minister. Welcoming Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Either give me a second. Just need a minute to organize my notes. starting in 3, 2, 1. I think that one thing that's important to note is that this will lead inevitably to an over-reliance on AI. I think government tries to get around this by saying, hey, if this happens, then we'll be able to incorporate, if there's any of the negatives that we talk about are true, we'll be able to incorporate things such as real life caretakers into the child's arsenal of whoever's taking care of them. I think this is untrue for one major reason: cost. I think that the government team really well next to you why this will be cheap, right? And I think that this is true, right? We absolutely buy this. This will be cheaper in the long term because the government is funding this. Why is this then bad? This will lead to inevitably an over-reliance on AI caretakers because of the one simple reason, which is that it's cheaper to do one over the other, which will mean that people who are poorer, people who don't have access to this, and people who simply do not understand the dangers of AI will opt for this over a traditional caretaker, especially in the case where it's more expensive, especially in the case where you don't have the money to pay for one, or this would mean the difference between this and sending your kid to a different kind of school or buying your kid toys. I think the average parent will note this, not know the difference between these, not know the reasons why AI is not necessarily good, and opt towards this. This will inevitably lead to an over-reliance on this, and I think the government is incorrect in saying that people would just opt for the real life caretakers when this is the case. Let me give you more reasons why specifically AI is bad. Because AI does a few things. Here's the reasons that AI is bad. First of all, the over-reliance is bad because of the reasons I mentioned before. Secondly, social signals and learning. I think that because even government themselves talk about the fact that this AI will not be a physical thing. This will be like a voice thing. This will be like an audio thing. This will be a digital thing. The AI will not be able to do do physical things. It wouldn't be able to show emotions. It won't be able to show facial expressions. It won't be able to play with the kids. The way kids love to play rough and tumble. Kids won't be able to learn social signals. Kids won't be able to learn the way that they react with other people. They won't learn what hurts people, what doesn't. If the majority of the time, while parents are working, because parents, if you're using AI, you're probably doing this because of the cost reason. The parents are probably both working. If you need a caretaker at all, this will mean that the majority of the information that the kid is taking in throughout the day will be because of the AI. This will mean 5 to 8 hours a day of the kid just being with AI on the upper end. Why is this then bad? This is key because this is the simple reason is kids learn so much at the young age at which they're taken care of by a caretaker. This is when kids learn social signals. This is when kids learn how to react with people, how to play with people, what hurts, what's good, how to hurt feelings, how not to hurt feelings, how to react with people. That this has a long-term harm on the way that they react with the world. This is the single most important part in their development, and this means that over the long term, this will lead to kids who do not have proper social skills, who are not able to socialize with their preschool friends, that are not able to socialize with their first grade friends, go into school without being able to make friends as easily, being more likely to be bullied, more likely to be socially ostracized. This leads to long-term harms because this is when kids get the most social development. This is the equivalent of sitting your kid down in front of a TV for 8 hours a day while you're doing your work instead of giving them to an actual trained caretaker, right? So for that simple reason, we tell you that AI is not good. And if parents are given the opportunity to do so, this will lead to a massive amount of people who are going to opt towards AI because of the fact that it's cheap, because of the fact that there's less education on AI, and the fact that overall people will just be, opting towards that. What then am I going to say? I think there's an interesting analysis here, which is that in the status quo, I think my partner tells you that if this is going to happen, I think that the private sector would probably do this better, because there's incentives of the private sector, such as things like money, wanting to be famous. If this is something that people actually want, this is likely, given the recent rise of AI, to be developed symmetrically, but later on. We buy this, right? This will take some time to be developed. This will not be developed immediately. But I think that a government has to take on an interesting burden, given that because there's so much AI going on right now, if the government is able to fund this with a ton of money, the government is able to pump money into this, assuming that this works at all, right? We're going to assume that this doesn't work because we would rather prefer physical people, real people. But assuming this does work, the government teams have to deal with this one simple burden, which is that if this is good, this is going to be developed symmetrically. All of your benefits are going to be achieved in a couple of years down the line anyway. The difference here is that we have fiat because of the fact the government has this set amount of money. If it has the incentive to spend it on something such as childcare, we can say that it also has the fiat to spend it on something I'll give you some examples. Services that get better with funding specifically for healthcare. Let's say they have this lump sum of money, and in the future we know that this is likely to be developed anyway. And as government says, taking government's own burden, this is probably, if this is going to be good at all, we can say that, hey, this is going to be developed anyway. We have this lump sum of money. Where should we rather invest this money now? I think that first of all, we can invest in some things such as daycares, funding daycares, making them cheap, making them super free. This makes it so that the people, when AI actually comes in, assuming that AI is even good, we already proved the benefits of why, we already proved the downfalls of why AI is not ideal at all. Given that if we're able to use this money to fund things like free daycare now, cheaper daycare now, funding certification for people who are taking care of kids, guaranteeing good childcare, funding education of caretakers, things like that, that make childcare cheaper, free, make it better quality, preventing all of the things the government is saying are the downfalls of like real life childcare. You know, things like people being lazy, people being like abusive. These things are more likely prevented by informing more education, by making certifications more likely, by making trained professionals who are actually able to do all of these things. By funding this now, all you're doing is in the 5 years or 10 years, whenever AI actually develops, in order to get to this point, now people have an option between cheaper childcare that is actually going to be good for them, things that are like physical, things where they're learning social skills, things where they're going to daycare, things where they're interacting with other people. This will exist, but way cheaper, because in the present, we are funding these things with the same money that we would have spent on AI. And they also have the option of AI, right? So if this is true, right? Let's assume the government is correct. This is going to be great. At least on our side of the house, we give you a little bit of we give you like an alternative, which is we fund things now that are actually better, which is that there's in real life, there's people who are willing to do this, develop all the social skills that me and my partner talked about. They're able to do this entirely symmetrically, right? If you begin to do this, if you fund this now, it's likely to be funded continuously, because things like impacting poor families, the amount of jobs that this would create, the communities that care about their local caretakers, this would become an industry. This would be a large industry where people are getting certification. There would probably be some sort of organization where like caretakers are banding together, things like just communities of that. It's unlikely to be just whisked away. If we fund this now, we fund this long term, the government is unlikely to take away the continuous funding of this, because it's so deeply relied on people. It'll probably continue to be funded because of this support. So what's the delta here, right? I think just comparing to government tries to tell you a lot of reasons of why AI is good and like physical childcare, real life people childcare is bad. We give you many other reasons why physical childcare is good, while AI is bad. AI cannot like stop your child from choking. The over reliance will just make this more likely the case. Parents will rely on this. The delta here, even if you believe that this is entirely a wash, is that in the future we're funding cheaper childcare, we're funding better quality childcare because of certifications, because of daycare. So parents, at least in the future, have this. I think the burden on a government side right now is to prove why, at the absolute best case, why this 5-year difference or 10-year difference of funding this now rather than later is better. Is way better than the alternative that we give you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Leader of Opposition. Can you guys just give me a quick 2 minutes? I need to go use the toilet, and then we can start closing. Okay, apologies for the delay. Welcoming member for the government. Here.
My pronouns are she, her. I prefer my POIs verbally. So, okay, judge. So we have heard a lot about AI caretaking, and what exactly this is going to look like. So I'm going to start my speech with a little bit of extra framing. So first of all, we'd like to point out that these AI companions are accessible. They obviously are taking the form of like an online platform, like an application on their phone. And secondly, they perform different functions than your like traditional caretaker, like social advice, emotional support, and like kind of just like stimulate an actual person, just kind of like being on the phone. Also, I don't think that deputy leader opposition understands exactly what aggressive funding is like. So it's an increase in development and diversity in the types of companions. So what does aggressive funding look like? It's an increase in development and diversity in the types of companions available. There will be competing among various producers for the most innovative companion. There's an incentive for state or tech producers to regulate the content. All of these will happen due to the rise in the aggressive funding. There will also be an increase of discourse on how to improve these AI companions as well as government endorsement. Third, we don't have to support people fully becoming reliant on this AI. We just have to provide having this additional tool in the toolbox for people to access is a net good. My second speaker will expand on this. Moving on to my extensions. First of all, increasing and improving access to companionship. I want to preface this argument by saying not everyone in the status quo is able to access basic childcare in the first place. What makes the access to childcare is already very limited to the upper class. This brings two problems. First of all, poor and vulnerable people aren't able to have good childcare, aren't able to raise their parent to the best extent because they're being used with not such a parental finger all the time to guide them around, become reliant on other means like social media or gangs. Therefore, many of these children lack meaningful social interaction with other children or other people when growing up. Now, how does this digital AI companion resolve this problem? First of all, they are readily available at all times, something impossible with physical connections or physical care. Why is this true? It's an online platform. It's available. You just have to open like your device. Second, human social interaction have evolved over time. People used to live in a more communal system, but now there are more independent family units, so people can and will be eventually more used to communicating and developing relationships with AI companions. Thirdly, positive impacts. People who have previously been locked out of companionship and childcare are now far happier, as this addresses the issue on accessibility. Second of all, it allows them to introspect their own preferences and what they value in a companion, and allows them to develop alongside this AI companion, feel supported, and gain the correct support that they need. Moving on to my second extension, but before I do that, I will take a POI from opening half if there are any. 3, 2. Okay. Moving on to my second extension. The aggressive funding of this platform is the only way to make AI's companions cheap, safe, and viable. To preface this, I want to state that since we're already rapidly improving technology, already rapidly increasing the reliance on AI in our daily lives, which leads us to the conclusion it's very likely for AI bots to occur in the future. However, if it's done at a slow pace, that's when the problems occur. First, we need the aggressive funding because a few things happen I will be mentioning for. First of all, criticism for this product increases as there's a lot of money going into it. People are more aware. They care more about it because it's their tax money going into funding it, and they will hold those producing companies accountable. Second of all, competition increases when more funding is happening. More companies are able to produce it, making the market for these bots alive and constantly moving. This is when it's going to be innovative and cutting edge in technology. Thirdly, AI bots learn from its mistake and learn from all the information. So it's a positive feedback. So the money invested is worth it. And finally, aggressive funding not only drives technological advancements in AI companions, but also stimulates related industries such as AI ethics, cybersecurity, and data privacy. This can lead to a broader societal benefit beyond just the immediate impact on childcare, which betters the overall technological resilience, and ethical standards. Moving on to a couple of rebuttals to the opposition. So first of all, they were all about over-reliance on AI. We have disproved that, and my second speaker will, of course, elaborate more. Second of all, they said non-sentient AI will hinder the emotional and social development. And it's true that AI companions aren't sentient, but they are programmed to be to simulate empathy and social interactions effectively. They can help children learn maybe like social cues, develop language skills, and provide just like a digital companion. And thirdly, the opening opposition was very prominent in saying we should invest in daycares to make them costless. Investing in daycares is important, yes, but it's not either or solution. What's needed for childcare, especially for families who can't exactly spend all day with their children and need somebody who the child can talk to so that they can still have lots of social options. It's a much cheaper alternative to daycare. So to conclude, access to an AI is a luxury most reserved for well-off families, leaving many lower-income households struggling to provide proper care and give a companionship. This holds back kids from marginalized backgrounds, but pushes them towards less ideal options like social media. On the flip side, the AI companion offers a much better solution by providing all the time personalized support that goes beyond physical constraints and helps support the child in growing up. More than proud to propose. Thank you.
All right, thank you, member of government. Welcoming member of opposition here.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. Starting in 3, 2, 1. Gov is out of this debate. This debate cannot be about a database of free information to help children. If that's the case, Wikipedia is free. Wikipedia is the biggest database in the world. Aggressively funding looks like the actual creation of human-like robots which take over human autonomy and do the things that parents don't want to. This looks like changing diapers, keeping kids safe. Even the allergy problems that OG talks about, they had to defend that in this debate. I'm gonna do three things in my speech. First, I'll take out OG. Secondly, I'll take out CG. And lastly, I'll give you my extension. My extension is really good. Listen for it. Number one, let's talk about OG. OG's main problem is abuse, right? They say humans are tired, there are pedophiles out there, and they abuse children. Today, we have 4 responses. Some of these are in extension, so please pay attention. Number one, this is not mutually exclusive, right? We can just filter out pedophilic teachers, install cameras in the classrooms, make sure adults don't be with minors one-on-one, do background checks on the teachers, etc. But B, and more importantly, their solution is not to interact with adults at all. Note the circular reasoning from OG that humans equals bad and can offer me candy and kidnap me, i.e. we should resort to AI companion bots instead. That's not true. We think it's important that people face real humans and learn how to react accordingly. Why is it important? Because the outcome on CO will say is that lots of people and all kids generally grow up in the real world. You cannot hide from public interaction. You cannot hide from people on the train, on the bus. You cannot hide from your colleagues at the workplace. You cannot hide when there are community events in general. You cannot hide from the person in the lift, you know, if you live in the same condo. Not everyone lives in their mom's basement, and therefore it is important for human interaction. It's a bit derivative of OO, but you know, I think it's better a bit. Thirdly, we think that they can learn from actual hands-on experience, and let's extend a little bit on why parents are better than AI, right? You can't learn about humans from a book, where if they're so soft and they defend databases, your AI is like a voice or like some text on a page. The kid doesn't relate to that, right? We're gonna give you a lot of reasons why parents are better. One, there's a motherly instinct and a warm body to hug the child. Children love physical connection. Children love feeling connected to their mothers. Incidentally, and this is quite funny, that's why people say, oh, think of your mother. What if your mother was the victim? What if your sister was the victim? Because family has a bond that you do not have with AI. Funnily enough, that's also why people make insults like your mom lah, your mom fat and extra, etc. Because that strikes a visceral nerve, right? Like, I love my mother and my mother loves me. Thirdly, your mother raised you and you cannot avoid her. At the point in which AI tries to discipline you, you can just turn off the AI bot. You can just walk away from it. You can't do that with, a human being. Fourthly, humans often communicate on basis of things like body language, right? So like social cues, using your 5 senses to gauge whether the person is angry or not. At the point in which they defend a database or text on a page, it's really hard for a child to learn how actual humans work in the real world. What's the impact of this, right? We think we deal with things like bullying, transitioning through puberty, having crushes, being in dilemmas, not knowing which university to choose. The AI doesn't help with that. The AI gives you a base of data. The AI doesn't empathize with your feelings the same way humans and adults do. But lastly, even if you don't buy all of this, you promote more lazy parenting on the gov. When you throw the kid to the AI, and there's a reason why they'll do this. They say, oh yeah, but then the kids will not get addicted, the parents will still be there. This doesn't happen, guys. And the simple reason is because there is a huge personal cost to child raising, right? A woman has to sacrifice her career, has to stay at home, cannot work a 9-to-5 job, has to do the dishes and the chores. At the point in which an AI does this, and it's so amazing, like Gov says, humans are less likely to opt into these things, and the child is less likely to receive human interaction. What is the weighing on this? The argument from OG kind of makes sense. Maybe there are some pedophiles, some people don't treat kids badly, but the comparative from OP will tell you is that parents completely do not interact with the child at all. Fourthly, let's wash it out, right? I think we have to frame this debate that it is more expensive than traditional caretaking. So all these CG arguments about access, etc. don't fly. Why is it more expensive than sending a child to a daycare? One, it's likely to be very expensive and not accessible because of R&D, high R&D costs, the fact that it personalizes the AI to your child. Each child has to be treated differently. They have to maintain an online database of information. Cloud servers, just to host a large amount of data, are very expensive. And even though the government funds it, it doesn't mean it becomes accessible to the large majority of people, right? The government gives Asia a bailout. It doesn't mean everybody in the world can suddenly buy an airplane. Secondly, we think it's also likely to be monopolized by one company, so maybe it's Meta or Microsoft, etc. And simply this is because there are high cost of entry into the industry, right? Like, it's an oligopoly, similar to the airline example I just gave. This is important because a kid will have one AI, but he will have many human friends, and we think many human friends is better than one AI. let's talk about CG's problem on access. Like, I don't think this is true. Like, typically in status quo, lots of poor families, the mom stays at home and takes care of the kid. So I don't know why necessarily that is cheaper than getting an AI. We think the AI is more expensive than the kid. That's CG out of debate. Let's talk about extension and why I think it's so amazing. O talks about social skills and kids growing up socially awkward. We think it's important to recognize that a lot of these kids are gonna grow up in social isolation, and it sounds derivative, but our impacts are very different. 3 things to say here. 1, we think it's important that kids interact in school and even out of school during their free time. You know, if Garth wants to be soft and only defend companionship, the kids should go to football classes and tuition together instead of spending time with AI companion bots. Why? 2 reasons for this. 1, you learn to cooperate and tolerate kids who are different from you. What does this mean? This means learning to work together with people from other races, people from different economic classes, people who have a different gender orientation, people who have a different religion, right? What is the comparative on Garth? At the point in which the AI bot that loves you so much and is so supportive towards you, you fully or partially avoid social relationships. Not just your parents, but if it is so comforting to have an AI for me, I'm not likely to seek human friends under their side of the house. Secondly, why is this bad? Because when you are alone, you solidify your biases. So it's not only about the guy being weird because he has no idea how humans talk. It's also about having no counter narrative to racist, bigoted rhetorics that are shoved down your throats by parents. And we agree, kids are impressionable, right? At the point in which parents say X race is lazy, people from X religion are terrorists, there is no counter narrative when the AI when there are no human friends, right? When I don't have an Indian friend or a friend from another religion, I cannot necessarily counteract these pernicious statements that my parents tell me. This means I only listen to conversations at the dinner table. This advances stereotypes and falsehoods that kids ultimately buy into. Why is this true? We think companies have an incentive to keep you buying, so AI will necessarily agree with you. This means like looking like statistics which support your claim. So they're going to say, the AI is only, they're going to say that, oh, did you know a particular race is 12% of the population but commit 50% of the crimes? This looks like misgendering people, discriminating against non-binary people, telling kids that, hey, even though you don't identify as a guy, you must wear pants and you cannot wear a dress. Like, AI is traditionally really bad at identifying black people for some reason. The point we're trying to make is that the AI is only as good as the database you train your AI on, and therefore, you know, all of these harms of kids confirming the biases accrue. Lastly, why is it important to have human friends to call you and keep you in check? Maybe you're not the best human, you're not the best friend, you're not the best boyfriend. Maybe you broke up because, you know, there were communication issues. AI will never tell you it's your fault. The AI which is supportive under Garth's side will say, oh, you know, maybe you're justified in ghosting him. This ignores the fact that in relationships and most social interactions, both parties play a part. Both parties have to work on themselves. What is the comparison? Humans and friends might give you constructive feedback. It might be lousy feedback, but they're gonna tell you, oh, maybe you shouldn't have ghosted him. Maybe you should have communicated more with him. This is important, especially for people with like violent tendencies who take it out on the AI versus taking it out on human. What is the bottom line of the extension? We think it's important to interact with humans instead of just AI. Very proud to oppose.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, thank you, member. Welcoming government work.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Thank you. Okay. My speech is going to be very simple. I'm going to take out OO and CO, then way over OG. What does OO tell us? They tell us basically why traditional childcare is much better. 5 pieces of big rebuttal under this. Firstly, they told us that you can't learn body language, respect, and social interaction from AI. This is absolutely true. But crucially, Judge, just think about it. This debate is not focused on the people that are already able to afford childcare, like those rich people on the top of society already. This debate should be focused on the vulnerable people who on their side are literally unable to take care of their children. They're working 3 jobs a day. They are struggling to even send their children to school, or they are single parents who have no other support system at home. The reason why it is about them is because on both sides of the house, rich people will be sending their kids to traditional childcare anyway. So the delta occurs through poor and vulnerable people. On their side of the house, poor and vulnerable people are still stuck to the ground, unable to get even marginal support for their children. At least on our side of the house, there is some sort of companion for their child that is able to maybe guide them through their schoolwork or give them social advice, not social interaction, to make sure they are safe when their parents aren't around. Yeah, sure. You can't learn body language or basic respect from these AI bots, but what is better on our side is number one, AI companions are readily available at all times, something that is impossible with these physical connections that Gov talks about. Why is this true? Number one, because people have previously been locked out of companionship and childcare, they're far happier. This addresses the issue on accessibility. And number two, it allows them to introspect into their own preferences on what they value in a companion, allowing them to develop their own values on who they want to be friends with at school, for example. Secondly, they told us that AI is new and it's unreliable. Look, on their side, AI will always be this new thing, it'll always be this unreliable source. But since we told you we are aggressively funding this, I don't know, bot, four things are going to happen. Number one, criticism for this product increases drastically as there is a lot of money going into it. People are more aware of it. They care about it more because it's their money going into funding it. They will hold these producing companies accountable as well. Second of all, competition increases. When more funding is happening, more production is happening, making the market for AI companion bots alive and constantly moving. This is when it's going to be innovative and cutting edge in technology. Third, AI bots learn from its mistakes, learn from all the information it gets fed, so it's a positive feedback loop, so the money invested into it is totally worth it. Fourth, it becomes cheaper for people to use. It is not a free database like what CG wants to claim, CO wants to claim, because it is heavily supported and subsidized by the government, which encourages innovation and quality and ultimately lowers the price for people. Thirdly, they told us that no, thank you. AI can't monitor safety. Two responses here. Number one, to clarify, AI bots at this point in time will not be the sole carer of children. Obviously, it's going to be a tool side along humans. It'll never be by itself. It'll always be accompanied by maybe a human facility. For poor and vulnerable households, then, they would probably be living their normal lives, but with this AI to guide their child alongside it, just an extra tool, and to make their lives marginally better, even if it doesn't support their child to the 100%, it's going to support them at least 20%. Second of all, a very nitpicky thing, but if the info slide literally says it's able to monitor safety, then we have the reasonable fiat to assume the feasibility of this and doesn't necessarily have to go into the details on how this bot is going to work. We just have to prove why the state needs to aggressively fund this in order to actually work. Fourth, they then told us that people become reliant. I don't see such a big issue with being reliant on this technology. It is a tool that is much better than their alternative, especially for vulnerable families, which for them the alternative would to be leave their to leave their kid at home or to make their kid work alongside them. The alternative on their side for areas of poverty for children would be neighborhood gangs, illegal activity, religious groups, or other bad options for kid to find an interaction with. Fifth, on free daycare. Sure. But the problem here is the money used to fund AI will not go into funding daycare. AI is a politically popular issue. Daycare, nobody actually cares. People will not allow the government to fund daycare. Taxpayers are not going to allow their money to go into funding daycare because it's not politically popular and it's not important to a large enough group in order for it to be supported as a policy. Jobs don't disappear. Daycare will still exist. The industry will not shut down altogether with this AI bot, but it is already a sunset industry in the status quo anyway. So because more parents are working from home or more parents have shorter working hours in general, therefore their alternative on OO simply just doesn't exist. In short, OO is out because number one, I pretty much disprove everything coming out from their side. Second, I tell you exactly why their counterfactual doesn't work. Then what does CO tell you? Firstly, they told us that on our side, people don't have social interaction. And this is basically their entire case. See, this is the biggest problem with the entire op bench. You're right. Not everyone lives in their freaking mom's basement. So obviously, if you're an actual human being, then we will have to go outside to interact with people. Hello? This robot doesn't magically shut down the entire world and keep all children inside and away from their mothers. Children literally still see their parents. I'm genuinely confused as to why the member of op went
On
on
that,
a 10-minute rant on why mothers are so important and why everyone loves their mom. Yeah, that doesn't change on our side of the house. Absolutely nonsense. Then they go to harp on why you have to make friends
On
at
that.
school. You have to understand other people. Like, hello? Children on both sides of the house go to school. Children on both sides of the house have friends. Children on both sides of the house learn social interaction through social interaction. I told you time and time again, the difference is them having an extra companion. Maybe if they are already an introvert and their parents realize that they are having a hard time making relationships at school, then maybe that is when they are going to give them this bot. Everything else on why, oh, you don't develop socially with an OO already, that's derivative, and I've already responded to it. Why do we weigh over OG crucially then? OG tells you that people can be corrupt, but that's largely symmetrical as long as childcare exists. It's true, but it doesn't have enough impact in this debate. What did we tell you? We fundamentally told you we're able to increase and improve the access to companionship, and the aggressive funding is necessary to make AI companions much, much better. So proud to be on CG.
Okay, thank you, Government Whip, to conclude this debate opposition with.
Hi, am I audible?
Yep, you are.
All right, hold on. POIs in chat, please. Let me set up my timer. All right. Starting in 3, 2, 1. 3 things in this speech. 1, I'll be dealing with the claims by all sides of the bench. 2nd, reaffirming CO's stance and why we ultimately take this debate. And 3rd, how CO successfully mitigates the harms that are being presented against us and how it actually happens worse on both gov benches, right? Let's take a look at what OG tells you. They tell you 1, there's a guaranteed prevention of neglect and abuse. 2nd, the guaranteeing factor that this won't happen is that the AI only knows what it is taught. It acts according to the data given to it. This enables OG to mitigate the harms that comes with irrational actors, aka humans, and ultimately protect these children, right? Panel, notice how both of these claims are contingent on 2 premises. 1, that every single caretaker possesses these inherent traits within them where they want to cause harm onto these children. 2nd, this AI is never going to succumb to any form of fault. Insofar that I can break these premises, all of OG's claims are not able to stand, right? Let's take a look at the first one. Notice how there are existing checks and balances where caretakers are vetted. Caretakers obviously have an incentive to want to take care of these children, right? Or not, they wouldn't have pursued this job in the first place. So this premise where every single caretaker is inherently evil is sufficiently untrue. But let's be charitable and let's assume it is. This ties into their second premise where they talk about how the AI models are guaranteed to only work in the favor of the child, right? 1, this is untrue for 2 reasons. Because 1, if anything, a human caregiver is gonna be the one that possesses this inherent instinct to detect when the child needs them, when a child requires any form of emotional support, right? 2nd, CO or Ryan already flips this benefit and tells you by having this AI constantly reaffirm, constantly operate within the wants of that child alone, there now materializes all these subsidiary harms where this child is now inherently stunted. These children aren't able to discern and develop the cognitive ability of understanding the nuances within human emotions, right? OG ultimately tries to claim one last benefit where they say this form of AI is more accessible on a wide scale. Why is this untrue, panel? 1, notice how the state is simply funding the development of this technology. If anything, accessibility happens worse on both gov benches because you now cement a wider gap between parents who can actually afford this technology and the rest of society, the rest of the people on the ground, right? Let's take a look at what CG tells you then. CG takes an alternative route and they say these AI models are required due to a shortage of caregivers and it acts as a method of solvency or burnout for parents. Sure, AI has the possibility to make these parents' lives easier, right? But let's flip this. When the child has no human interaction and its sole reliance is on this AI model, their development ultimately becomes worse because the model is going to continuously reaffirm whatever the child's misinformed thoughts are, right? Which leads to a larger subsidiary harm, subsidiary impact, because the moment these children go out and they actually interact with actual people, they realize this isn't actually how humans operate, right? CG ultimately tries to frame traditional data as something that the state isn't going to want to care about. So notice, panel, if CG acknowledges that there is a flaw with the way the system currently operates, would it not make more sense to fund and channel the funding to areas where clearly something is lacking instead of aggressively funding a sector of tech that does not have any guarantee of success, right? The guarantee of success that they tell you is just humans are harmful, yet there's a heavy lack of analysis regarding how the companionship you receive from a metal frame that has an AI model is better than the companionship you receive from an actual human. Why does CO take over OO then? Boiled down, OO's case is simply one, the practical benefits you gain through human interaction are better. The tech is unlikely to be sophisticated and it creates an influx of socially stunted children. While all of this is true, CO effectively points or like paints out this marginal scale of people who are going to be impacted by this, right? What does this look like? So this looks like one, Ryan already tells you that social isolation that happens with the involvement of this AI, right? So panel, notice in order for all of Gov's benefits to materialize, they need to fiat that this AI is going to be something that's effective, that this AI is going to benefit these children's development in the long run, right? The moment this claim exists, we tell you already it becomes a cyclical problem. Why is that? Number one, you lock all of these children out from the ability to interact with actual people. You lock them from the ability to engage with people who are different from them, right? This operates within the characterization given to you by OG, which is the AI's incentive is they want you to keep using it. They will reaffirm whatever like thoughts or prejudices that you have, right? That with essentially no form of checks and balances. Notice how OG attempts to mitigate this, and they say AI is going to be incorporated alongside traditional caregiving. But the moment you concede that this AI needs a form of supervision in order for it to function properly, all of your benefits are unable to materialize, right? The second impact lies in the incentive, because your incentive as a parent is you want to ensure that your child, especially during their like malleable years, right, it's going to be effective, right? Again, as Ryan already tells you, this is completely something that is completely untouched by OO, that children are variable, they possess like individual qualities and traits, so it makes the most sense for these parents to want to raise them in like a personalized manner, to raise them in accordance to who they actually are, right? Both OG and CG never provide a guaranteeing factor why this like singular model that is being loaded with a singular line of data is able to effectively raise these children and ensure that they develop these characteristics of like social skills that you're only able to attain through site CO, right? Let's talk about the third impact of our extension, which is it lies in the comparative. Notice the only practical impacts both gov benches present to you are you're prepping the children for the future by assimilating them with AI, right? Panel, I don't understand why this is such a crucial element that helps that case, but ultimately this is a wash, right? Because you can enable these children from like knowing about AI, but why is it so crucial? Why is it so important that we have the AI models themselves being the actor that raises these children, right? At least on-site CO, even if the child is exposed to occasional yelling, occasional parenting by their caregivers, right? We prepare them and we tell them the reality of being a human, where it's not just an AI model continuously reaffirming every thought you have, but it's actually having to develop those crucial skills that benefit the development of the children in the long run. So for all those reasons, stand with CO. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for the debate. Please cross floors, shake hands. I'm gonna take a few minutes to look over my notes, submit the ballot, and I'll come back for OA. Thank you.